Your Steve Jones Show podcast will start shortly. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Brewers Outlet, your beverage supermarket on Reagan Street in Sunbury.
Okay, so 7 practices into what is now preseason number 2. What kind of foundation have you been able to lay in those 7 practices?
It's actually been really good. We've actually gone back and studied what a normal camp would look like in terms of the number of practices, and then studied what a normal camp would look like in terms of the number of meetings, and compared it to this year. And in a lot of ways, this is favorable. This is you could make the argument maybe even a little bit better in some ways. So it's been really good for us on offense, obviously, with tweaking the offense. Defensively, it's always good to reinforce some of the things. And then we've done our off-season studies and made some changes with what we're trying to do defensively. And then, obviously, Coach Lord put a great foundation last year on special teams, and we've built on it. So it's no different than anything else. It's getting everybody to buy into it. One of the things I talked to the team about yesterday is, as we play a lot of music at practice and crowd noise and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's going to be different. I said, as we get closer to game week, we're going to have to understand we're going to have to bring our own energy. We're going to be playing in empty stadiums. You would listen to college games and NFL games. You can hear everything. You can hear all the calls, the checks. So it's going to be different, and we're going to have to bring our own juice.
And not only that, but in watching, for example, the game between the Saints and the Packers, there's no way Aaron Rodgers does a hard count in the Superdome under normal circumstances, and he got the Saints 3 different times in that. So there's something about maybe your quarterback having the ability to do that, but also it means a quarterback can come in here and has the ability to do that.
That's exactly right. You're going to lose your home field advantage. But you're also going to have less challenges, on the road as well. So, like anything, the most important thing for me is that it's as level of a playing field as possible. And, different states have different, requirements and expectations. And I think, the Big Ten decided that no one was going to have any fans. And I know for probably some of the states, maybe like Nebraska, that was probably going to have fans. It hurts them, but I also understand, trying to make this as consistent as possible week in and week out for everybody involved.
You have worked very hard along with your staff over the years to recruit, to get the offensive line back to where you were hoping to get it. What has been like for you, especially in the first week, and plus everything else, that you've had now some established depth on the offensive line?
I think it's been really good. The competition, the way we can practice, guys knowing they better come to work every single day because there's somebody trying to take their job. I think Coach Troutwine's done a tremendous job. I think Wendy Laurent and Ty Howell have done a great job. I've been very impressed with our staff. But they also, those guys, everybody maybe except for Wendy, they don't understand, like me and you, what it was like when we got here. I mean, it's funny. People brush over that when you talk to people. We had 5 scholarship offensive linemen before we moved over Derek Dowry and Brian Gaia from the defensive line. And people brush over that. I don't think people understand how crazy that is, how challenging that was. So where we are now in terms of having, 16 to 17 scholarship offensive linemen, but not only scholarship offensive linemen, 16 or 17 guys that you think you could play with. Our starting lineup, I think, is going to be really good. I think our 2 deep is going to be as good as, anywhere in the country. I believe that. Now, again, that doesn't mean our starting 5 is going to be the best in the country, but I think our 2 deep is really good.
Well, you mentioned Wendy because he had to move to center and Jerardi to go to left tackle. This is the way it used to be, and you and I know that. So that's the way it used to be.
Well, the other thing is, if you saw Wendy right now, you'd say, no way that guy played offensive line.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's a positive to him. As we know, in college football, usually when you get done playing, it's one or the other. You blow up with the lack of exercise and put on a bunch of weight, or like Coach Troutwine, who played in the NFL at 325 pounds, and he's 226 pounds right now. At 6'6", our offensive line coach, and Wendy Laurent, looks like a field backer.
Exactly. When you've always promoted that if a certain player had the ability to play multiple positions up front, you've always encouraged that. What has the versatility of an older player like Des Holmes meant to you so far?
Yeah, the other thing I would say to you, too, is we're doing that with Will Fries right now. Will Fries, we're getting him some work at not only right tackle, obviously, but right guard. Part of that is we think that may be in Will's future as well, at the next level. That's also Caden Wallace is doing some really nice things right now at offensive tackle. So allowing some of those guys to get some reps, I think you'll also see us, probably because of how strongly we feel about our two deep on the offensive line, I think you could see us play more guys. Offensive line is like one of those positions you don't typically rotate a whole lot of guys in there because trying to get 5 guys to play as one is challenging, and the chemistry and that cohesion is important. But guys have earned it, and guys that deserved it. So you're going to see, I think, a little bit of that this year, and that's with guys like Des Holmes, and that's with guys like Will Fries.
And the guy in the middle, Michael Menet, it's how important is he as the quarterback for you of your offensive line?
Yeah, I think whenever you can have a guy as talented as he is, but also, the experience at that position is so important. And it's been really good, again, having guys like Juice Scruggs and having guys like Mike Miranda, that we also feel good, at that position. That's 3 guys that we feel really good about. And then someone that probably, you don't hear his name very often, but we've been so impressed with this young man since the day he stepped on our campus, is Zaylor. Zaylor, we would have died to have him my first year. He's done extremely well. We're super proud of him.
Yeah, and again, that's all part of the depth. And then what about in terms of tight end? We know what the tight end situation is, but you talk about playing as one. How important is the tight end into that playing as one for you?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, you look at the tight end, to me it's one of my favorite positions because, the tight end really has to spend 50% of their time, working, hand in hand with the offensive line and really being an extension of the offensive line depending on your system. And then they have to spend 50% of their time working hand in hand with the wide receivers, in the passing game. And having a guy like Pat Fryermuth that can live in both worlds, because a lot of tight ends you see, even guys that end up, being ranked, in tight end rankings nationally and things like that. A lot of them are really wideouts. They're not really tight ends. And I think that's one of the things that's so great about Pat is you don't know how to deal with him on defense. If you don't respect him in the running game, then we're going to beat you up, with our run game. And if you overcommit to stopping the run game with Pat in there, then he can beat you in the passing game. And that's where tight ends are so impactful, when it comes to offense is matchups and how are you going to treat them in your game plan. Then after Pat, Tyler Bowen's done a great job in recruiting and developing, and we got a group of 4 to 5 guys that are battling, and I think that's what it is right now. It's Pat, and then it's a group of guys that are battling, to find out, who's going to be the second tight end on the field or who's going to be Pat's backup.
Penn State football coach James Franklin. Coming up bottom of the hour, Mark Zumoff on the Sixers. Mark's one of the best in the business without question. Dick Jerardi at 4:06 today. King in the final half hour today. Shikellamy football coming up tonight. 7 o'clock, 6:30 airtime with Kevin and the Chief. All that and more today's show brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK. When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you. The other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years. Well, Suit's not here, so we're going to take back control of what we're doing. See, Matt likes the fact I can tie the suit into anything.
It is impressive.
Great to have you with us on the show today. Fun one today. Dick Jerardi will be at 3:35. We had to switch up. Mark had to switch up. So I know I said at the end of the previous segment that we're going to have Mark on next. It turned out that Mark got a hold of us. He needs to move to 406, so we will do that. And Dick Jerardi, of course, more than happy to work at 3:35. Yeah. That's what happens when you know people for a long time. You can make moves. All right. It's great. We haven't had Zoom off on the show. I think he is so good at what he does. Man,
oh, yeah. I'm pumped to have him on today.
He's tremendous. I mean, it's not like he and I have never talked, because we have. But, I'm just glad we were able to get him on the show, because this is, he's in this business, this is the definition of a pro's pro. All right. Baseball playoffs are continuing. And as they do continue, I know the Marlins and the Cubs are playing at Wrigley Field. Marlins won the opener of this series 5-0. And so now game 2. One thing you've noticed, I know the Cardinals-Padres game got a little crazy, 11-9, but there haven't been a lot of runs scored in some of these games. And the Cubs and the Marlins are still scoreless in the bottom half of the 4th inning. Although the Cubs may have a little rally going. Steelers and Titans will be, as we talked about yesterday, October 25th. Okay. That means the Ravens game is November 1st. And again, it's interesting. Mike Tomlin's done the job for a while. And there are people who are critical that he hasn't won more games. Or sometimes they don't like a style. I've always been a big Mike Tomlin guy. Big Mike Tomlin guy. And I love his approach. But yesterday I asked him about having to play 13 straight weeks. He goes, who cares? It's exactly right. You don't sit there and go, well, yeah, it's a concern. Oh, we're going to have to play. All you do is that when you sit there and you turn it into a concern, we're going to have to play it around, we're going to think about what we're doing, it makes everybody else think. If the head person sits there and says, hey, don't worry about it, he says, who cares, we're fine. Everybody else is like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Love the approach. Spend too much time worrying about stuff. We opened up this segment with the chief person who's like that. I'm talking about the suit. He worries about everything.
See, I can't criticize him for that because I'm the same way.
No, but you ask him. I was not kidding when I said that. You ask him, how many times did he say this, and the other thing? And I said, don't worry. That I said to him, don't worry about it. It's fine.
No, it's true.
Right?
Even the first one to tell you.
I tell you that all the time. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yes.
Again, I was interviewed today by someone, and in the interview they asked about the influence of my parents. And I talked about work ethic and things like that, and I said, my father always told me, he said, look, he says, don't worry about things you can't control. I mean, meanwhile, we've had to replace the carpet in the back corner office 3 times in the past year because of him pacing. Like, what are we doing? Today's show brought to you by Brewers Outlet. Now, that will solve a lot of problems.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is The Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. You know, you might need Brewers Outlet more than ever to get through the Eagles season.
So true.
You're so bitter.
Or anybody who's watching the Sunday night game this week, you have the Eagles who are playing terrible against Nick Mullins.
You're so bitter. I remember when I thought you were this nice guy, you know, great wife, you know, great kid. Now it's like, why? I mean, does your son know how bitter you are?
Yeah, not yet, at least.
Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drink, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and hot every day. And the pickle bar, led by the barrels and the dills, indeed second to none. And I don't care if it's chili or not. Everybody loves a slushie. 6 great flavors. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. And I'm in the Sunbury Motors studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. It is the first week in October. And in the first weekend in October, of course, that means the Preakness. Huh? With that, we bring in the great Dick Jerardi. DJ?
What? The Preakness? How can that be? What is going on? Oh, it's 2020. I forgot.
It's 2020. And who could forget?
Yeah, who could forget is right. Yeah, no, it's just it's a bizarre end to a triple crown that was bizarre from the start and a bizarre year that keeps getting more bizarre by the day.
Yeah. And, yes, exactly right. So this is Preakness number, what, 145? So
sounds right. Yeah, it's going to be the first one where I have not been in Baltimore. Boy, it's like 30 years, 40 years. I don't know, a long time. Jesus, crazy.
And not only that, this is a really different field than what we thought about back in the Belmont Stakes. So let's start with this. Let's start with there's 11 horses.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually about the field for the Preakness. What, 8 to 11?
That's right.
So what about Authentic? Let's start there.
Well, it's Mr. Baffert. He has won the Derby 6 times. The previous 5 times, the horse that he brought to Pimlico won the Preakness. So he's 5 for 5 on that Derby Preakness double, going for 6 for 6. With Authentic, he's also won the Preakness 2 other times with horses that probably should have won the Derby but didn't, were unlucky. So he's going for a record 8th Preakness win tomorrow. And look, Authentic's the horse to beat. He beat the huge favorite Tisdalaw in the Derby. No Tisdalaw this time. They're waiting 8 weeks for the Breeders' Cup instead of coming back in 4 weeks for the Preakness. And look, Authentic's for real, Steve. I mean, he's won every race but one, and in that race he got a bad start and finished second. And he probably is going to be out there in front again. Maybe there's a little more speed than there was in the Derby, but not dramatically so. So I think Johnny V and Mr. Baffert, they don't team up a lot, but when they do, they're pretty dangerous.
And not only that, I think, as you pointed out, this horse likes to run with the lead. I mean, it's very rare when this horse is in a come-from-behind position because this horse just breaks and goes.
Yeah, the only time he got beat, he missed the break. He was post 7 in a 7-horse field. He kind of took a right turn, and he got behind, and he never could catch up. And he finished second to a very good horse, Honor AP, who finished 4th in the Derby. But that kind of wasn't indicative of the horse's talent. And I do think this, and Baffert's mentioned this, Steve, this is 4 weeks. Typically, it's 2 weeks between the Derby and the Preakness. He would have liked it to be 2 weeks because this horse was in such great shape that the others are going to be playing catch-up if it was 2 weeks. But by having it 4 weeks, it's brought other good horses like Art Collector, who probably wouldn't have been able to make it if it had been 2 weeks.
Right.
He's back in it. 1,000 Words, who got scratched right before the Derby because he flipped over in a paddock. He's back in it. I think it's actually the 3 races this year. I think it's the strongest field of all. The Belmont was basically Tiz the Law and a bunch of horses that were trying to finish second.
Right.
The Derby had like maybe 4 good horses in it. I think half this field is like pretty good, including the really good Philly Swiss Skydiver.
Yeah. What about Pneumatic? Because Pneumatic was, 4th in the Belmont and then won the Pegasus, and they pointed to this race.
Yeah, he's my long shot. He's 20-1. He's trained by Steve Asmussen, he's had 4 horses of the year since 2009. Rachel Alexander Curlin twice in Gunrunner. And Steve, he just went over 9,000 wins in his career, only the second trainer in history to do that. And he's going to break the all-time record for wins next year. And he's I don't know if there's a sports analogy for this, but he's as good with like the cheapest imaginable kind of horses, like $5,000 claiming horses that might run at Lone Star Park in Texas, as the horses that run in the best races in the country. And there's no other trainer that does that. Like Baffert doesn't have $5,000 claimers.
Right.
He just has horses that cost big numbers, and he runs them in big races. But Asmussen's the rare exception that has both. And Pneumatic, he's got 3 in the race. Yeah. I think Pneumatic is his best chance. And my man Jersey Joe Bravo is on him, so that's my long shot. If it could come like say 9-10 authentic Pneumatic, I think you can rest assured I might have some of that.
I wouldn't be shocked. There have been 5 fillies that have won the Preakness. So you mentioned Swiss Skydiver.
Yep.
Was the I want to say Swiss Skydiver was the runner-up in the Oaks.
That's correct.
And Kenny McPeak trains this horse. What do you like about this horse? I mean, this horse is $1 million earner. What do you like about it?
Yeah, incredibly consistent. Steve, since late March, she's run 6 times in graded stakes races, all against fillies, with the exception of Bluegrass, where she ran against Star Collector. She's been win, second, win, second. So you don't get much more consistent than that. And one of the seconds was when she took on the boys and lost to Art Collector, who's a really good horse who has a very good chance of winning this race.
Yep.
And I think Kenny just said, hey, if there had been a race for 3-year-old fillies at this stage, I think you'd have run her in it, but there really isn't any left. So he's going to run her in this, then she'll come back and run against the females in the Breeders' Cup Distaff in Kentucky in 5 weeks.
Art Collector had been on a pretty good streak. Art Collector had won 4 races in a row, and as you pointed out, there's a good shot that Art Collector was going to be the second choice for the Derby before that foot injury. Yep. So what do you think a month can mean for Art Collector, and what kind of factor can Art Collector potentially be? Yeah,
I think he had a real chance to win the Derby, and he probably has a little better chance to win the Preakness because, as disappointing as it was for Bruce Lunsford, who's a Kentucky guy, and the trainer Tommy Drury, both Kentucky guys, not to run in the Derby, Steve, they're going to get 8 weeks instead of 4. And I actually thought they made a mistake by running this horse at Ellis Park. I thought they just should have waited for the Derby. It turned out it was going to be irrelevant. But the fact that they get those extra 4 weeks, his workout on September 19th is the best of any horse coming into this race. It was just spectacular. So I think he's going to run great. The question is he going to be run well enough that he can run down the favorite of the stretch? Because although Art Collector has speed, I don't think they're going to race him that way. I think they're going to let Authentic go and try to, at some point, get outside him and just try to run him down. And he could. It could happen. And I would probably pick him in normal circumstances. But I've just watched Baffert win these races too many times. I mean, you get all the worst of the price, but you get the best of the possibilities. You mentioned earlier the other Baffert horse, which is 1,000 Words, which
For Jimmy Barnes, the assistant trainer, not good. Jimmy broke his wrist when 1,000 Words flipped. But the horse is fine. So since the horse is fine, what does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, he flipped in the paddock, 15, 20 minutes before the Derby, and by rule they had to scratch him because you just don't know if there's some problem at that point. They might not be showing anything, but they could have some injuries you don't know about. They got him back to the barn. They did all the tests. He was fine. And he's had some really good races. I mean, last year he was probably the top 2-year-old in the barn. And then he just had a couple really bad races. Like, what is going on here? But last time out, he beat Honor AP, looked good doing it. I think Authentic's a little better, and it's going to be interesting how Baffert talks to his jockeys. He's got Florent Giroux will ride 1,000 Words. He does not want 1,000 Words and Authentic going out there battling each other. Right. So I think you can expect that 1,000 Words will say be sitting third or fourth early in this race.
What about New York traffic? New York traffic is obviously challenged Authentic in the Haskell in July. What about this horse?
I thought he was going to run great in Kentucky, and he had great position, and he just lost it on the far turn. He couldn't keep up.
He finished 8th.
Yeah. Now, he did lose a shoe in that race. That sometimes can affect the horse. I don't know that it should have affected him so much. He gets beat almost 14 lengths. But, yeah, I mean, if that was a one-off, and all his other races in 2020, any one of them are good enough to give him a chance to be in the top 3. So he's kind of the mystery here, Steve. Like, why did he run like that? I don't have a great answer for it. It could have been that. It could have just been the fact that he was chasing up pretty hot pace in Authentic, and that just did the play of the race, the way the race was run didn't work out. But, yeah, he's not without a chance. I'm not going to bet him this time, but he is not without a chance if he comes back to that form where he lost Authentic by a nose in the Haskell.
All right, so how do you want to play this, Dick? Because when you look at it, there's a favorite in all this, but there's several players, there's several horses in here that are double digit to 1 in here.
Yeah, I wish I could see the first 200 yards.
Yeah,
like ahead of time. If they're like I think they are, then I think Authentic is a better than 50-50 chance to win if he's cleared the field heading into the first turn. And if that's the case, I think it's most likely to be Authentic over Art Collector. And it could be the other way around if Art Collector's good enough. And I kind of like a 9, 3, 10, that's Pneumatic, and then 4 Swiss Skydiver. And that, let's put it this way, Steve, if it's in that order, you may hear me from State College.
There you go. Perfect. I love it. That's exactly right. This track is, we've talked about it many, many times. Everyone talks about the tight turns. Actually, the track's not as wide as other places.
Correct.
It's only an 11 horse field. Does it even come into play here? Because the width of the track would be a big deal if I think this was like the Derby is 20 and they won't allow it. But the fact that it's 11, it's no big deal.
Now, there's a limit of 14 in the Preakness. Yeah, now 11 should not be a factor. And I think Authentic is drawn well. You'd rather be outside than inside. Anytime there's other speed in the race, you'd rather be outside of them. So in case somebody goes like crazy, you could just get your horse to relax behind the other one.
Yeah, and Authentic's in the 9 hole. So
yep, I think that's a good spot for him.
It's a really good spot. And Pneumatic is next to Authentic. And,
it is.
Yeah.
Little 9, 3, 10 action or 9, 10, that would be fine. Either one would be fine.
Anything works in that order. Yes, it works. I'm going to ask you a quick basketball question.
Yes, sir.
Because Penn State's been practicing. I had a long talk with Patrick yesterday. And they're going to get to camp on the 14th with the idea of starting on the 25th.
Okay.
Of November. November 25th being the start time.
Yep.
Look, circumstances will dictate all of this, but how important is it, Dick, that they can pull it off and have a basketball season and have a tournament?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's one thing. All the other sports have sort of gotten to play. It's been a little strange, right? But baseball's in the playoffs, strange 60-game season, shortened NBA, no home games, but they're into the NBA finals. Hockey's done. Horse racing's gone the whole way. It's really college basketball is the one sport that just like, all right, why don't we just end it at the most significant time of the year? So yeah, it's huge. It's one thing to have to get through that. You missed in some cases like Lamar Stevens, Mike Watkins, and anybody who's a senior last year was going to play in the NCAA to miss out on one of your biggest goals you've ever had. But that's over. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about it. But you'd hate to see it happen again, where the season either gets interrupted or doesn't get started. And Steve, I think there's still a lot of unknowns in basketball. Football is one thing because it's outside.
Yeah.
Basketball is not outside. So we're just trying to work our way through it. But they were able to play in NBA and NHL, but that was different too, right? Because everybody was like, it was just them. There wasn't anybody else.
Right.
You're not going on the road, but hopefully by late November, we keep saying this, right? It's going to end at some point, but it's just not ending. So. Hopefully by then, the answer to your question in a long-winded way is, we need to play this season and have a tournament.
Yeah, exactly. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Yes, sir. And to you, sir, enjoy the Preakness and every other event that's happening all over the country tomorrow.
All over at the same time. What the heck?
Yeah.
That's why they have box and box now. You can watch 2 and 1.
That's right. And Liverpool against Aston Villa on Sunday.
And you and I can never forget that because we cannot ever forget Mr. Tarman.
That's correct. Yeah, I love Liverpool for those people interested in such things.
Absolutely.
Almost as much as I like authentic.
That might not be true. All right.
Yeah, that might not be.
All right. DJ, thanks.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Steve. Safe out.
Dick Jerardi. Mark Zumoff next half hour. King final half hour as we continue. Brought to you by Brewers Outlet on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
An award for the jacket and tie. Does it count as a vote for the suit?
I'm just asking. I don't know.
I'm asking for a friend. Just asking for a friend. I was just wondering. Hey, tonight, Shikellamy football. Got that for you tonight. Got Shamokin tonight. It's going to be a tough, hard-fought game. 7 o'clock, 6:30 the airtime. Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK with Kevin Herr and the Chief Dave Ritchie. Top broadcast team in the state getting out there and getting it done tonight. Also, Selinsgrove will be on Eagle 107 tonight, looking to bounce back. And you've got Lewisburg tomorrow night in action. So the Lewisburg game is tomorrow night. Now, State College is actually going to finally join the party. They're playing at Central Dauphin tonight. And we got another game here, local game, because our signal extends into Center County, especially Eastern Center County. Penns Valley is going to be playing against Bellefonte tonight. Should be a pretty good game. Yeah, you'd be amazed. You drive in 45, you'd be amazed how far the signal travels. It's amazing. All right. So that's what we have coming up tonight, and you want to talk. This is what becomes so galling. I understand the precautions, so I'm not criticizing the precautions. Okay, I'm just lamenting the circumstance. But boy, this is a perfect night to go out and watch a high school football game. Oh my goodness. It's 53 degrees, a little snap in the air. You need a jacket, you get some hot cider, you get a dog. Taking the band, the color guard, the cheerleaders, the teams, the game. Oh my goodness. This is exactly why they play football in October, is a night like this. I'm lamenting, I know. That's all I'm doing is lamenting. I'm not being critical of anybody's decisions, not in any way, shape, or form. I'm just lamenting. You are allowed to lament. But boy, yeah, I mean, the sky's beautiful out there today. It's not 80 degrees. It's not 30 degrees. Just feels like high school football. But at least they're playing. For the young people, I am so thrilled at least they are playing. College football finally gets a little meat on the bone this weekend. We've had a series of Week 0 games, one after another. This weekend, you got Alabama against Texas A&M, and you got Auburn against Georgia. In fact, tonight's game, the 9 o'clock game tonight, it's not bad. Louisiana Tech and BYU. It's a pretty good Friday night game. You also have the Lakers and the Heat in Game 2 tonight of the NBA Finals. Top of the 6th inning, Marlins and Cubs are still scoreless. Cardinals and Padres, third and deciding game at 7 tonight. Steelers game with the Titans will be October 25th. Mark Zumoff on Doc Rivers and the Sixers next half hour here on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by our great friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket.